This is the Cliff Yates Show. Personal growth, motivation, inspiration, and philosophies for a great life.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Cliff Yates Show. I'm so excited to be with you today. I'm always excited to share great things with you. Hopefully, they will impact you in a positive way. That's my goal, to positively impact you today. And we are going to talk about a book today, briefly, a book that I read, and now I'm just starting to reread the book because I was watching the actual author, Angela Duckworth, on the Mel Robbins podcast, and she was being interviewed, and I thought, wait a minute, that book, Grit, I already have it. So we're going to briefly talk about her book, Grit, and what grit is, what that actually means, and how we can apply it to our own lives so that we can, obviously, every day in every way, get better and better and be a better version of ourselves than we were yesterday. So we're going to talk about that book. And I was watching not only the Mel Robbins podcast, but I was also watching some clips on YouTube. Isn't it amazing? You can go to YouTube and actually watch clips of Steve Harvey, Steve, the comedian, host of Family Feud. And there's like a million clips of him on the Family Feud show. And apparently it's during times when they're switching cameras or redoing lighting or the set, or they're on a commercial break. So instead of Steve Harvey going to the back or in the powder room, he stays right out there on stage, and he imparts wisdom to the audience. Things of motivation, things of personal growth, and just ideas. And he relates it to his own life, and he relates it to how people in the audience can take what he's telling them and make massive changes in their thinking and in the results they're getting in their own lives. And it's really quality stuff. A lot of it, as he says, I was watching one episode, and I've talked about this before because I too, like he alluded to in one of these clips, he was talking about two books that he read, The Magic of Thinking Big, and I forgot the other book, but he was saying all of the self-help books, all of the personal growth books really predominantly are based on a foundation of biblical principles. You could just go to the Bible and you can find these principles written in the Word over 2,000 years ago. And in fact, he says, write it down, what you want, what's in your mind, what you desire, write it down. We are created to create, as opposed to the other animals and beings in this world. We're created in God's image. God created us, and he made us creators so that we could do what God did, which was create. We're not gods, but he endowed us with the power to have dominion on this earth over the creatures and the animals and plants and birds and whatnot, and that we also are creators. As God created us, we also are creators. God, he could have just made light, but he didn't. He said, let there be light, and then there was light. He spoke it into existence. It really was a lesson for us to speak things into existence that we want. Say it out loud so that we hear it, so the universe hears it. Write it down on paper. Look at it every day. Say it to yourself every day, in every way. We're creators. No matter what job we have, we are meant to create. But Steve Harvey has some great messages in those breaks that he takes on the Family Feud. There's just a bunch of them. I think they're under the tag of motivation, Steve Harvey, and you can find it. Go check those out. But he was really inspiring me yesterday, and I thought, well, I'm going to mention him in the podcast today. And then today I was watching the Mel Robbins podcast, and I go, wait, Angela Duckworth, the person who went to college to study neurobiology and the way we think. And she came to the conclusion how things used to be, where we felt that the brain was pretty open and pliable when we were in young grade school, and then we got to junior high and things began to slow down a little bit, and then we got into high school, and then we were kind of, well, this is the way we're going to be. And then she came to find out that's a bunch of BS. No, neuroplasticity is the name of the game. Plasticity, the ability that we have to constantly be growing, constantly be changing our brain and how we're thinking, and the ability to rewire ourselves at any time, at any given moment in life. We can make the changes that we want to make by doing certain things. And that's really a lot of what her book is about. And in her book, Dr. Angela Duckworth, get that book, Grit. It really goes along with Tony Robbins said the other day in one of the episodes that I was watching. Well, he didn't say it the other day, but I was watching it the other day, where he said, if you're not growing, you're dying, whether it's your relationship, whether it's your job, whether it's the trees in your front yard, whether it's the universe, the world. If we're not growing, we are dying. So we need to be constantly growing. We have the power to be constantly growing and taking new things in. And we're doing one of two things. We have a group of people like you and I. We are constantly expanding. Our mind and our brain is expanding, and other people are contracting, right? We all know people who have closed minds. They have made decisions how they are in a lot of ways, and maybe in all their ways. They are locked in, and nothing you say or do is going to change that. They are not open to any new information. They have shut down their ability to manipulate their brain with neuroplasticity because they are hard-hearted and hard-minded. But we don't have to be that way, and we shouldn't be that way. So I have a slide here that goes along with, it's a biblical verse really that goes along with something that Dr. Duckworth talks about. And she talks about really marrying your passion, what you have a passion for, and marrying that with perseverance, persistence, perseverance, pleasure, your purpose. You marry the passion, something you really enjoy doing, with the perseverance to keep going. And it just reminded me of 1 James, which I've had to turn to recently because of trials and challenges that I've had. And that's when going to church really helped me, because this message kept showing up in my mind. It was 1 James. James wrote to count it all joy. So in 1 James, he writes, consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters. In other verses, it says, consider it all joy whenever you face trials of many kinds. No matter what troubles and trials that you are going through, count it all joy, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete. You're not lacking anything. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. But when you ask, you must believe and not doubt, because the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed about by the wind. That person should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. Such a person is double-minded and unstable in all they do. Go forward, count it all joy, get through trials and tribulations without a doubt. Don't have any doubt. Be of great courage and go forward. Such a great message. It's a biblical verse, but it went along with a lot of what Dr. Angela Duckworth talks about in her book, Grit. Here's another verse from the Bible that I think is just something that we should be making part of our soul for expansion, personal growth, and self-improvement. Rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, Paul wrote in Philippians 4. Rejoice. Kind of goes along with what James wrote, right? Count it all joy. No matter what's happening, rejoice in the Lord always. Let your gentleness be evident to all, by all around you. Let your kindness and your gentleness be evident to everybody who's around you by what you do, what you say and do. Do not be anxious about anything. Don't worry. There's somewhere else, I know it's said or written, has worrying you gained you 1 hour of a day of life? Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your request to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding. We can't understand. God is spirit. He will guard our hearts and our minds in Christ Jesus, who is God in human form, time traveled down to earth so that we could be redeemed by the blood of Jesus. And we can understand that because now God in human form we can relate to. He is the way. He is the light. Now I love this. Finally, brothers and sisters, listen carefully. Whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Paul is saying here, focus on those things, what is right, pure, lovely, admirable, excellent, praiseworthy. Focus your attention on those things. Where focus goes, energy flows, and Paul was writing that over 2,000 years ago in the Bible. And then he says, whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice, and the God of peace will be with you. He's saying, model me what I did. Model whatever you see me doing, whatever you have learned from me, you have received from me, you have heard me say, put it into action. Just don't hear it. Just don't receive it. Just don't believe it. Put it into action. Take action on what Paul says. And he's saying, model me. Model what I've done. It's a great message. Best self-help book in the world. Nietzsche wrote, with everything perfect. Now, this is from Dr. Duckworth's book, Grit. Nietzsche wrote, with everything perfect, we do not ask how it came to be. Instead, we rejoice in the present fact as though it came out of the ground by magic. When I read that passage, the doctor wrote, I thought of the young swimmers watching their icon Mark Spitz exhibit form that almost didn't seem human. No one can see in the work of the artist how it has become, Nietzsche said. That is its advantage, for wherever one can see the act of becoming, one grows somewhat cool. In other words, we want to believe that Mark Spitz was born to swim in a way that none of us were and that none of us could. We don't want to sit on the pool deck and watch him progress from amateur to expert. We don't want to be there and see the struggle. We don't want to be there to see what he went through to get to where he is, because then the focus will turn to ourselves. And we realize probably quickly that we're not doing what we should be doing to be all that we can be. It takes effort, passion, purpose, perseverance to get where Mark Spitz got. He took action. Inherently, he had the genetics that would give him the opportunity to express those genes in a way that he would become a great swimmer. But they still have to be expressed, exploited, put into practice. He had to put into practice and persevere through trials and tribulations to get to where he became in his excellence. Our vanity, our self-love, promotes the cult of the genius, Nietzsche said. For if we think of genius as something magical, then we are not obliged to compare ourselves and find ourselves lacking. To call someone divine means here there is no need to compete because it was given to them by divinity. No, they did the work. They took the action. They had the passion. They had the pleasure of going after it, and they persevered. Mythologizing natural talent lets us all off the hook. It lets us relax into the status quo. That's what undoubtedly occurred in my early days of teaching when I mistakenly equated talent and achievement, and by doing so, I removed effort, both my students and my own, from further consideration. So what is the reality of greatness? Nietzsche came to the same conclusion Dan Chambliss did. Great things are accomplished by those people whose thinking is active in one direction, who employ everything as material, who always zealously observe their own inner life and that of others, who perceive everywhere models and incentives, who never tire of combining together the means available to them. They're always looking for things that are really conspiring to be in their favor. How about Pete Carroll, man? I love Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll today, I believe he is 72, still coaching, still active, still vibrant, still obviously getting after it every day in every way, trying to not only be better himself, but also to have a positive impact and better those around him. That's why he's such a great coach. Seattle Seahawks coach Pete Carroll put it this way: do you have a life philosophy? For some of us, the question makes no sense. We might say, well, I have a lot of things I'm pursuing, a lot of goals, a lot of projects. Which do you mean? But others have no problem answering with conviction. This is what I want. Everything becomes a bit clearer when you understand the level of the goal Pete is asking about. When you understand the level of the goal Pete is asking about. He's not asking about what you want to get done today, specifically, or even this year. He's asking what you're trying to get out of life. In grit terms, he's asking about your passion. Pete's philosophy is do things better than they have ever been done before. Like with Jeff, it took a while to figure out what, in the broader sense, he was aiming for. The only year in his life when Pete wasn't playing or coaching football, at that juncture, one of his good friends urged him to consider something more abstract than which job to take next. You got to have a philosophy. Pete realized he didn't have one and needed to. If I was ever going to get the chance to run an organization again, I would have to be prepared with a philosophy that would drive all my actions. You need goals to drive you. You need goals that are going to pull you into action. And like Pete Carroll says here, he needed a philosophy that would drive all of his actions. Pete did a lot of thinking and reflecting. My life in the next weeks and months was filled with writing notes and filling binders. At the same time, he was devouring the books of John Wooden, the legendary UCLA basketball coach who won a record-setting 10 national championships. Like a lot of coaches, Pete had already read Wooden, but this time he was reading Wooden and understanding at a much deeper level. He had already read about Wooden, but now he was seeing it from a new lens, from a different perspective, with a new goal, with a new drive. That's why we read the Bible over and over again. Sometimes all of a sudden we've read this passage in the Bible 5, 6, 7, 100 times, and today you have a revelation of what it actually means or what it means to you. Because now, today, you're in a different place than you were when you read it before. That's why it's a living Bible. It's a living works. It is alive. The Word is alive. So we have to keep reading, sometimes over and over again, even though it seems like something's not happening right now. We read it. I didn't get anything out of that. And then, boom, it hits you. Just like Pete Carroll, who's now reading Wooden again, but this time he has an understanding from a deeper level. He's understanding what the coaching icon had to say. And the most important thing Wooden said was that though a team has to do a million things well, figuring out the overarching vision is of utmost importance. Pete is getting to really a hierarchy of goals here where the little things are important. These little goals are going to they're going to drive the mid goals, and then the highest of goals are supported by those also. Pete realized in that moment that particular goals, winning a particular game, or even a seasonal championship, or figuring out this element of the offensive lineup, or the way to talk to a player, needed coordination, needed purpose. A clear, well-defined philosophy gives you the guidelines and boundaries that keep you on track. One way to understand what Pete is talking about is to envision goals in a hierarchy. And here we can see that one way to understand what Pete was talking about is a hierarchy of goals. We got these low-level goals down below that support a mid-level group of goals that supports the overarching goal of your life. Down below you may have the low-level goals of just, I've got to get up at 8 a.m. I got to be out the door by 8:02 a.m. because the mid-level goal is always getting there an hour before the rest of the team, before the team meeting is important. More important than the low-level goal is the goal of being there before the team meeting starts, because it's going to show that I say what I'm going to do and I do what I'm going to say, something to that effect. Let's see what it says here. At the bottom of this hierarchy are our most concrete and specific goals, the tasks we have on our short-term to-do list. These are short-termers. I want to get out of the door today by 8 a.m. I want to call my business partner back. I want to finish writing the email I started yesterday. These low-level goals exist merely as means to ends. We want to accomplish them only because they get us something else we want. In contrast, the higher the goal in the hierarchy, the more abstract, general, and important it is. The higher the goal, the more it's an end in itself, and the less it's merely a means to an end. The low level I see are a means to an end, and the higher we go in the hierarchy, the less they are means and the more of them are an end themselves. That is very, very telling, and it's awesome, you guys. It is really awesome. The science of passion, that's really what Dr. Angela Duckworth is talking about in her book, Grit. And she really studies how high achievers, like you and me, high achievers, people who have high standards, who think big, high achievers, all high achievers have common denominators. And what they're trying to achieve is a special combination of passion and perseverance. So they combine their passion with perseverance for long-term goals. That is grit. She put, you know what she put on the screen was her definition of grit. Grit is the combination of unwavering passion for long-term goals and the perseverance to work hard, practice what you can't yet do, and stay resilient over years. Unwavering, perseverance, persistence with a passion, something you really enjoy doing. When you get into it, 3 days could go by. You don't know it because you're so immersed in what you're doing because it's your passion, your pleasure, your purpose. Even if you don't know what that exactly is yet, you can start acting as if you do in everything that you do. A growth mindset. Dr. Duckworth had a definition of what a growth mindset was to her. The belief that human ability isn't fixed, but can be developed and improved through effort, learning, and experience. And I talked about earlier how when she was first going and studying neurobiology, how the belief system was, as you were a young person, you were more pliable and open to learning new things. Well, you could learn a new language because you're young. And then when you get older, not so much. And she came to find out that's BS. Well, it may be a little bit harder to learn a language, but the fact is, you can learn it. You ever hear people say, well, I mean, I'm too old for that right now. If I was younger, I could learn a new language. Well, you can learn one now. It may take more effort. It may take more perseverance. Maybe you don't have the passion for it. But if you did, you would have the drive to do what you needed to do to learn that language. And you'd enjoy doing it because it's your passion. Some people live with open minds, neuroplasticity. They're open-minded. They're open to new information, new ideas, trying new things, and they're always expanding. On the contrary, there are other people who are constantly, well, they're contracting. They're getting smaller and smaller. They've made up their mind. Nothing is going to change it. They're not open to new information. See, whatever you believe, you can find evidence to support that. If your belief system is a table, you can always find legs to support that belief. You believe that love is everywhere you go. You can find love anywhere. You're going to find examples to support that. You believe the world is mean, cruel, and everybody's out to get you, and they're out to give you a hard time. You're going to find evidence to support that belief also. We have plasticity in our beliefs. We should be employing beliefs that is going to serve us the best it can in the lives that we're living. Plasticity is now the name of the game. Our brain gets stronger at perseverance the more you practice like a muscle, growing with repeated use. You heard of paranoia. How about pronoia? I just heard that word the other day, and I like pronoia. What is pronoia? It's the reverse of paranoia. Pronoia is believing the universe is working and conspiring in your favor to bring positivity and good things in your life. You are pronoia. You think the world is conspiring to do nothing but great things for you. We should all have pronoia. I think it's awesome. See the world through a lens that serves your life the best, right? You can have two people, same circumstances, and they see the world through different lenses, and they're going to have different attitudes, beliefs, and they're going to get different results in the life they live. And it reminds me of a story. Two gentlemen, they're shoe salesmen. They send them off to a town in South Africa, and one salesman comes back and he says, "This is unbelievable. This is fantastic. We are going to sell so many shoes." Nobody there was wearing shoes. The other salesman comes back and he says, "Oh man, no good. No sense trying to sell shoes over there. It won't work. Nobody there wears shoes." Same place, same circumstances, looked at through a different lens, and you have a different belief system, and you're going to get a lot of different results. That's for sure. I like that story. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining me on this episode of the Cliff Yates Show podcast. I hope you got something out of this episode. If you did, please like, leave a comment, share it with somebody you think might need to hear it. But as always, we learned some things today. If we took the opportunity to take the information in, neuroplasticity is important. Grit, what is it? Right? Hard work with passion and perseverance towards a worthy goal. So important. If we're not growing, we are dying. Be constantly growing, expanding. Our mind is always available to expand, learn new things. It's always developing new brain cells. We just need to put it into action. Get that machine going, everybody. It's making me smile just knowing that you're receiving this message. All right, everybody, you know what to do. Subscribe to the channel. This is a community of progress, and I'm happy to be here with you. You know what to do. Subscribe, pass it on, and I'll see you in the next episode.